submit some money for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guarantee you, if you went to those players and say, hey, fellas, if we play these 2 games, you will get cost of attendance. I guarantee you the decision will be unanimous. Coach, let's play them. Let's play them.
Right.
Because the athletes are actually benefiting from it. But it's a it's a two-edged sword. Even though you're playing those games to help those kids with the cost of attendance, you still put them out there. And AD was right. You still doing it's just doing it another way. You're still doing the exact same thing.
Well, I did answer yes to it when he posed that question. Yeah. But then I think I came with something out of the field remark behind it. Because basically I said, hey, $1,000 versus 100, I'm gonna take the 1,000, but yes, I'm still taking one for the team. I believe it is that. But cost of attendance comparable to NIL. It can't. To me, NIL is quick and short term. Cost of attendance is something that could be long term. Wheeler, can you compare and contrast NIL versus cost of attendance, or is cost of attendance something that should be looked at more of doing it? Because Coach Banks, the director of Southern, he came on the show and talked about that's what Southern's trying to do for their student athletes.
I think cost of attendance has the ability to affect everyone, whereas NIL is going to affect only those players that are popular, that are marketable themselves, like starting quarterback, starting running back, your star receiver, or something like that. But, cost of attendance has an opportunity to affect everyone. And so, that's why the cost of attendance to me outweighs anything that NIL can bring to the table. Plus the fact that NIL is not, how can I put it, the longevity factor in terms of NIL is not there, as opposed to the longevity factor in terms of the potential of cost of attendance. So, you're able, in my opinion, you're able to cover more ground if you're able to do cost of attendance than you are NIL, which only concerns itself with a certain number, a limited number of players, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because you mentioned quarterbacks and they're getting those deals, their name recognition, but without those big guys up front.
Yeah, I mean,
what about O linemen, D linemen?
And these guys are only human. These guys are only human. And at what point in time does that doubt or whatever, jealousy or whatever it is you want to call it, kind of creep in? Here my jersey's getting dirty, and I'm keeping folk up off this guy, and he ain't even buy me a burger last week. So maybe I need to slip and fall on one to kind of who's in charge, who's actually in charge up there. And, maybe he'll start to share the wealth, or what is saying, the Godfather, wet my beak. Maybe a bit, So it's something that kids, kids nowadays, they think about those things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something to be thought about, that's for sure.
And we talked about it before, guys, and I will say this: I think it's a tough job, the director of athletics. I mean, they're the CEO of the athletic department. You got to have a good staff put together.
Yeah, I love my HBCU, and boy, I love it, I love it, I love my HBCU, and man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. We have none other than Charles Bishop ready to go. We should have a good show ready for you. Welcome to episode 371, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, for institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports story of HBCU sports. We're coming in from the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. With that being said, I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live, KSOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University. With that being said, that's in Houston, Texas. Charles, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well. We got the cracking back going on. We got SWAC tournament, MEAC tournament getting ready to go. Just finished watching exciting Texas Southern baseball via their YouTube channel, taking down Texas Wesleyan today. So we got a lot of stuff going on.
Good win, good win. I heard a 6-5, 3-1 home run set the Tide to close, get ready to close out that game, and they got it done.
They got it done, 9-7 today. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. Today's episode of Inside the HBC Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Did you get a chance to get your vote in yet? I know you got until 9 o'clock, so you might be still studying a little variables, particularly trying to get that game underway for Texas Southern. Have you got your votes in for this week's top 10 for HBCU? HBCU 9, Black College 9.
Yeah, got to get my vote in. You know, my head's been down, getting ready for midterm, but got to get my vote in before 9 tonight.
Get your vote in. Large division and smaller division, as they call it over there. We call it major division, the same as the large. And for small division, we call it mid division. But I'm interested to see how the votes are. When you look at the major division, I was really excited to see the number of teams that are going into the third week of baseball play with winning records, or if they're under 500, it's like one game. So that was a nice thing to see, especially with so many of them playing Division I opponents. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think it helped a lot that you have these classics where they get to play each other. Obviously, it means somebody's going to lose, but it also means somebody's going to win in terms of HBCU. So that's a good thing as well. So I thought that was hot off the spot, getting into it. With that being said, coming right off the top, I'll jump on here and then I'll come back and see if there's some news that you want to share as well. SWAC has some news. It welcomes TIAA as a new basketball tournament sponsor. The SWAC has welcomed TIAA, a leading provider of secure retirements and outcome-focused investment solutions, as its newest basketball tournament sponsor. The sponsor highlights TIAA's commitment to provide financial well-being to administrators, alumni, communities of HBCUs. Quote, "We're excited to welcome TIAA as a new sponsor for SWAC basketball tournament," end quote, said SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McCullough. Quote, "TIAA's commitment to financial well-being aligns with our mission of educating and empowering the communities we serve, particularly our HBCUs and their alumni. We believe that this partnership will bring valuable resources and opportunities to our administrators and alumni as we look forward to working with TIAA to promote financial security, equity among our communities," end quote. The equity and security, financial literacy, and past that, obviously is extremely important for the African-American community in general, particularly in this case for HBCUs in those extended communities. So that's significant to hear and read. I think that's big time in a lot of ways. In terms of the quote from TIAA's Chief Marketing and Communication Officer, at TIA, quote, "Our mission is to help all Americans retire with confidence," end quote, said Mickey Honorario, which is significant, and I have a great appreciation for that. He also states, "We believe that having access to retirement savings and lifetime income solutions is a fundamental right for everyone. By partnering with the SWAC, we hope to help administrators, alumni of HBCUs plan for a secure retirement and building better financial futures," end quote. I know you like to make sure that you're taking care of your money, so I think this probably Charles.
It does. When I saw
you.
the TIA, I said, "Oh, okay. I like this. I like this partnership."
Finance person, like
very
you,
much so.
Hey.
Very much resonated with me. I was like, "Oh, okay. I like this retirement funds. Let's do it."
Something about that retirement fund. What else news you got on your plate?
Yeah, let's take a look at it. The SWAC, they announced their women's basketball postseason awards this afternoon. And Alabama State's Ayanna Emanuel, she was named the Player of the Year, while Jackson State's Angel Jackson claimed the Defensive Player of the Year accolades. Bethune-Cookman's Chanel Wilson was tabbed the Newcomer of the Year, and Texas Southern's Micah Gray was selected the Freshman of the Year, and Jackson State's Tamika Reed was voted as a SWAC Coach of the Year. Let's take a look at their accolades. Emanuel was the leading scorer in the league during conference play. She averaged 16.9 points per game, and she helped Alabama State to a 12-6 mark in league play. Angel Jackson was the key defensive presence for Jackson State as they held opponents to the fewest points per game in conference play, 59.1 points per game. She led the conference in blocks per game with 2.4. Wilson, she posted an impressive debut for Bethune-Cookman as she ranked second in the league in scoring with 16.8 points per game. Also chipped in 3.1 rebounds and 2.3 assists per outing. And Micah Gray was a key contributor for Texas Southern Lady Tigers offensively. She led the team in scoring with 16.7 points per game. So let's take a look at the All-SWAC first team. Ayanna Emanuel for Alabama State, T-Line Baller from Jackson State, Diana Rosenthal representing Prairie View A&M, Chanel Wilson from Bethune-Cookman, Jayla Crawford from Alabama State. They round out the All-SWAC first team. All-SWAC second team was Jericho Covington from Jackson State, Amani Freed from Alabama A&M, Destiny Brown from Alcorn State, Micah Gray from Texas Southern, and Ellen Horton from Florida A&M round out the All-SWAC second team. So those are your All-SWAC first and second teamers, as well as the players of the year.
Good stuff, man. Always at the end of the season, it's tremendous to hear those that really separated themselves from other individuals that played the game over this academic year in terms of whatever sport, in this case, men's and women's basketball. Significant there. Did want to give an update, pretty much hot off the news, NIA tournament. Tougaloo got it done against Texas A&M, the NIA program there, Texas A&M, Arkansas in that area. Defeated them by 10 points. I think it was 75-65, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of that matchup. Solid victory. They move on. And obviously this time of the year, that's the name of the game. Survive in advance. Obviously,
there it is.
In pretty solid fashion. Be interesting to see some of those other matchups on their side. Obviously, you have Langston, Xavier. You could see in the quarterfinal round, if you would, if both teams can get it done, you can see a matchup that would feature Xavier and Tougaloo later in that tournament, as they're on that side of the bracket in the same quadrant. When you have Langston, the highest seed of any NIA program, HBCU program, I should say, at number 2, and they're on the other side of the bracket. So you would actually have to have a championship game to feature 2 of the HBCUs facing off on each other. So that'd be fascinating. You do have similar on the NCAA Division II side, both on the men's and women's. You have second round opponents, which would feature HBCU programs. Obviously, Elizabeth City State could face in the second round a team out of the same conference, CIAA, in terms of in that matchup. On the men's side, it'd be Virginia Union could face off against Winston-Salem State in a second round. I think in the women's side, it would be against West Virginia State in the second round if you got it done there. You had two teams coming out of the SIAC on the men's side. When you look at it, obviously it was Tuskegee on the women's side getting it done in the tournament, but on the men's side, you have Miles College and Tuskegee getting in there in that action. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like in terms of those Division II tournaments. To give you some updates there, I'm gonna shake it back to you to give any other updates that you might want to talk about in terms of some news going on for the day that people should listen to.
Well, Doc, I think you touched on it. I think congratulations goes out to Miles men for taking the SIAC tournament championship and the Tuskegee women. Got an opportunity to watch both of them, so you're looking forward to what they can do in this postseason play. Both very tough, very exciting teams who have a shot, to advance beyond just that opening round. So looking forward to what they can get done over there in the Division II tournament.
Let's get into some of the SWAC MEAC seedings for those that are interested in that. You probably have heard about now, but just in case, at least for the times, and give you that. On the women's side, the number one seed, obviously, as you know, is Jackson State. They face off the 8th seed, big win by Grambling State that last night that catapulted them into the number 8 seed. So that's a 1 versus 8, Jackson State and Grambling. Obviously, that rival goes back in a lot of sports in a lot of ways. So fascinating there. Obviously, a tough matchup for Grambling to try to figure it out, but this is term time. Anything could happen. Game number 1, which is actually on the same day earlier from that 5:30 p.m. from that game 2 is a 11 a.m. game 1, which features the number 2 seed on the women's side, Alabama A&M, versus the number 7 seed, Arkansas Pine Bluff. A&M probably jumped up as they were tied amongst those 5 teams. They ended up with the 2nd seed. They play Arkansas Pine Bluff. That probably didn't quite live up to expectation this year. So should be interesting to kind of see how that goes. You flip to the next day on Tuesday, March 9th. You have game 3, which features a number 3 Alabama State versus number 6 Bethune-Cookman at 11 a.m. You have a game 4, which features number 4 Southern against number 5 Prairie View. Those teams have split this year. 5:30 should be interesting in that matchup in terms of a lot of parity. Makes sense kind of where they tied with all those 5 teams that finished with the 2nd record, but they fall to 4 and 5 in terms of the tiebreakers. Should be interesting there. And then you get into obviously Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m., 5:30, which features the winner of those games coming up against each other. And then Saturday at 1 o'clock is the championship. Let me get into the MEAC women. We'll come back and give you the breakdown for the men a little later. But when you talk about that bracket breakdown for the women, if you would, in the MEAC, is fascinating when you talk about on Wednesday, you have number 1 seed facing number 8 seed South Carolina State at 12 o'clock as you go for that. And then game 2 on Wednesday is also the women's game, which features Morgan State, the 2 seed versus number 7 Maryland Eastern Shore. And so you notice there versus they put both the women's games in the morning in regards to their tournament on Wednesday. Then the same thing happens on Thursday where you have 2 women games in the first session in the morning, which would be a number 4 North Carolina Central versus number 5 Coppin State. And you have a number 3 Howard versus number 6 Delaware State. And those games are at the same time, 12 and 2 p.m. Obviously, those times are Eastern, while the earlier times are gave. All these games can be seen on ESPN Plus, so you can check those out. We'll come back a little bit later. We'll give you an update, if you would, on the men's side brackets, how they fall out. We'll get into some discussion of what you're thinking of where these things can fall and who will be in place. It should be an interesting tournament. Let me give you a couple of nuggets before I let you go. This is more in terms on the men's side, but the women's side has been pretty close. You get into what it looks like in terms of some of these matchups. These games, teams have been competitive, especially when you get outside of Jackson State and what they did at the number 1 seed, to some degree, Norfolk State. But check this out. Brian did a fun fact for opening round games played last year. Bartlow Arena, all games went under 130 points, with 3 under 120. That's 104, 127, 118, and 117, respectively. The margin of victory in those games were 4, 1, 2, and 5 points.
Wow.
So I'll be looking for the unders, as he said, and the dogs getting +5 points. For those that are into that stuff, obviously we don't tell you where to spend your money, as we just said. TIAA, we talk about your savings. Make sure you can only spend what you got. I came back and shared this as I started keeping up with this early in the season. I've kind of provided these nuggets here and there, but it stuck with me. After 98 games played on the SWAC men's basketball game, 19 or 19.4% were decided by 3 points or 1 possession. 44 or 44.9% were decided by 6 points or 2 possessions. And 62 or 63.3% were decided by 9 points or 3 possessions. We're going to take our first break. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to bring in the Hall of Famer, the guru, all everything, Mr. Charlie Neal, and he's going to give us really some insight to break down both of these teams. He's called these games, many of these games on HBCU Go all season long. First class production for Curtis Simons in terms of what he was able to do as the CEO of HBCU Go. And obviously, as the play-by-play, Charlie Neal made it all go and made us all tune in. So we'll be right back on the other side. I can't think of a better person to break it down. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. We have Charles Bishop, but we have none other than Charlie Neal, the legend. Man, I get to use my top 5, Charles, to see what the legend says about my top 5. See what he says.
You get an opportunity to get the stamp of approval.
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. How's everybody?
We're doing well. We're doing well. Let's see if he doesn't flush it down the toilet. You know, you got those, keeping it flush. I might get nervous.
You'll be all right. I'm sure you followed it like you normally follow everything else, Doc. So I know it's going to be nothing but.
Yes, sir, I appreciate
it. But
yeah. Let's get into it. That's right. Then we'll come back and give you a chance to break down some of these teams on the tournament based on what you saw, right, in living color right there. And obviously, people don't realize how much you prep before a game. So there's so much information that you get to put in that you can bring to us that some of us may not quite even realize exists, because we come in and get to entertain by what we see. And also, you have fans of the fans. They tend to focus on their team. So whether the team does well or bad, it's about what their team, and not understanding their nuances about the coaches and what other teams are doing to counteract it, kind of in like a chess game. With that being said, let me get in this top 5 real quick and see what you think about this.
Okay.
This is the women's major division top 5 rankings. There were 2 teams that dropped out of this week. That was Alabama A&M, the Bulldogs, fell to 14-14, 12-6, and the Alabama State Hornets. They took tough losses, but they still kept pretty good rankings because of the tiebreakers all season. But they had stumbled, if you would, big for Grambling, because it got Grambling in the tournament, as we said earlier, and the fact that it gave a 5-way tie for these teams that sat at 12-6. So who were receiving votes this week? Alabama A&M Bulldogs were at 14-14. I said 36 points. Alabama State with 33 points. Morgan State Bears 17-10 with 20 points. Southern Jaguars at 15 points. Let me tell you this before we get into top 5. This is a week-to-week poll, so it fluctuates based on what teams did in 2 games over a weekend. And then this last week, obviously, it was like 3 because the poll comes out Tuesday today, and it takes in all those games played of the week. So it doesn't have as much ranking in terms of what a team did all year long. It's really focused up and down what a team did for that week. So at number 5, we have the Howard Bison. They rebounded after a tough couple of weeks, but they got in play, if you would, in terms of what this looks like. We have at number 5, Prairie View A&M sitting at 15. Really, it's number 5 is Howard Bison sitting at 14-13, 44 points, were not ranked. At number 4, you have the Prairie View A&M Panthers that we talked about that had a solid weekend, big wins, beating their rivals, and closed strong on the season, sitting at 15-14, 12-6 to get in that 5-way tie. They were not ranked, but they just jump in at 45 points, 44 points in the top 5. Getting those teams that really have been solid, you go to number 3, Norfolk State Spartans. They had a tough weekend, surprised everybody with a loss, even though they had clinched that Monday in terms of what took place in the MEAC. They fall from the 1 spot at 20-3-6, great overall season, 11-3, 61 points. Bringing us to number 2, North Carolina A&T State Aggies, 18-11, 12-6, won first place vote, 72 points. They kind of stumbled down the stretch. They got the benefit that they played their tournament a week early, so they got a win in the tournament when this was last calculated at 72 points. They're moving in and playing at the semifinals, so see what that looks like. But they move up 2 spots. At number 1, Jackson State Tigers. They have a 10-game win streak, I believe it is. 20-8, 17-1, dominated the SWAC, had that 1 loss, but they got the revenge, beating Prairie View at home when they clinched the league championship. 6 first place votes, 80 points, number 1 ranking. Let's hear it from the guru. Well, I'm going to go with you, Charles. Your quick thoughts, and then we go to Charlie Neal to kind of break it down and solidify what he thinks on the top 5.
I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. I think when you take a look at the teams that have dropped out, these are the top 5 elite teams from my perspective, especially when you start taking a look at these regular season tournament champions in Jackson State, Norfolk State. Norfolk State kind of slipped down the stretch. So I think there's some intrigue once you go into the tournament, especially when you take a look at the top 3 in the MEAC. I think Jackson State, there's a couple of intriguing matchups in terms of teams that I think can challenge Jackson State, but I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of this top 5.
Man, you just being nice, talking about there's a couple of teams that can challenge Jackson State. And let me stand corrected, 14 wins for Jackson State
I was going to say,
to close out the regular season. Yeah. Charlie Neal, what are your thoughts on the top 5?
Well, one of the things, you left Morgan State out of your list.
Yeah. I had them receiving votes, but they were out of the top 5. They fell out. You're right.
And the only reason I say that is because I know they stumbled toward the end. They started the season. Right. They were 9-0, and
they were hot.
They were very hot, and all of a sudden they kind of tapered off. Not a good time to be tapering off as you get ready. That's one of the things you always are concerned about. But one of the things that always impressed me about Jackson State this year, the women's side especially, is if you look at the top 25 Power 5 rankings, they played for those doing the pre-conference play. They played some of those for those schools that are ranked in the top 25 right now. And so when you look at that and the fact that, they didn't get beat up, they got beat, but they didn't get beat up when they played those teams. And that's the difference. You don't expect them to beat the South Carolinas but look at what they did with LSU last year in the postseason in the NCAA tournament. They scared the pants off of the coach over there at LSU. And so, again, those are the types of things that you give them credit for. I saw them and you saw them. Well, maybe, I don't know if you did, but I had their game last week against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they looked like they were in quicksand, for at the first half of the game. But then all of a sudden, the cream rises to the top. So things worked out for them. But when you look at what's happening in the MEAC, in addition to Norfolk State, as you said, they've earned that #1 spot. But then you have, Howard University. Watch out for them. They're the defending champs. And, they are not going to lay down. They have excellent players, Destiny Howell and the rest of that crew over there. They're going to do a fantastic job. And you're talking about preparing. I wish you can't see around me, but I'm getting ready to do the MEAC tournament. And I mean, when you have to deal with 8 teams and do 10 games in 3 days, that's a lot of preparation. And in fact, when I finish with you guys, I'm going to be headed to Norfolk for headed down, and the tournament gets underway tomorrow.
I love it. I need a picture in that mad room so I know what it looks like. All that paper everywhere.
You think you have a lab? You should see this one.
Yeah. Yes, sir. That's what it is. Co-host Mike Washington, he loves talking about data points, and you just gave one. Morgan State was hot, like you said. They had won 9 straight conference games. Unfortunately, they fell hard, losing 4 of the last 5, to your point. So when you get in that tournament, you gave us a little glimpse of some of the teams, Howard to watch out for. Norfolk State, it was necessary enough to win it, but they kind of stubbed middle, and then they had that surprise late loss, which gives me some question mark. Where do you think we should be looking at when we look at the women's side of the MEAC tournament?
Well, don't sleep on North Carolina Central. A lot of people have slept. North Carolina Central is playing as well. I have seen them play in the last couple of years. They come into as the #4 seed in the MEAC. So that's a team that you keep your eye on them. We know about the Norfolk States, we know about what Morgan has done, and we know what Howard has done. But watch out for this team from Durham, North Carolina. North Carolina Central, the Lady Eagles. We've known what the men have done for years with Lavelle Moten as their coach. But now, watch out for the ladies. They're starting to make a turn and starting to put some numbers up. And that's a team I'm gonna watch out. They'll play their first game on Thursday. They'll play Coppin State. And Coppin State is another one of those teams. Laura Harper was the coach there last year. She left and went over to one of the other schools. She'd played in the WNBA, one of the other schools over in Baltimore. But she didn't leave the cupboard bare, So, again, that's the team to watch. Between those two, that could be the sleepers of the tournament between Coppin and North Carolina Central.
Go ahead, Charles. You want to follow up?
Well, yeah, and I wanted to ask this question, and you mentioned Destiny Howell's name earlier with Howard. But, Charlie, are there players in particular that, especially when you take a look at tournament play, that a team can just kind of hop on their shoulders and ride them on through this tournament?
There are a number of players on both sides of the spectrum in terms of the men and the women that can get it done. When you look at this Morgan State team, and I'm just looking at something, and you got Janiyah Henson, preseason second team all conference selection. That's a young lady that you need to pay attention to. Also, they have another young lady over there by the name of Charlene Shepard. And then there's Taylor Addison. I mean, those are the type of people that will put you over the hump. We talked about years ago,
right,
Coppin State, and how they had great players, Rashida Subers and people of this nature. You have those same type of players that are existing today on the ladies' side in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. The same thing is happening with the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I mean, you look at Micah Gray, you know, even though they're not making it to the tournament this year, this is a young team, 6 freshmen on that Texas Southern team, 9 new faces this year. And I thought Coach Skeet did a fantastic job. And when you look at their losses, I think they lost 8 or 9 games in single digits. So that means they were not getting blown out. They were losing. Yes, they were, but they were not getting blown out. So, you know, a couple plays here or there, a couple less turnovers, a couple more made free throws, and they may win those games. But this is a team that coaches need to be paying attention to because they're young. In 3 years, 2-3 years, next year possibly, we'll be sitting here saying, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's look the SWAC and see if we can find on the women's side. Then we'll take a break. We'll come back, Charles, get on the men and have you follow up with some more questions there. In terms of the women's side of the tournament, obviously most people are going to put their chips on Jackson State, rightfully so. Played really good. They won the conference 4 straight years. So it's not like this is a team that doesn't play. Yeah, they lost a key player, but they are not in the component where they rebuild. They just keep trucking. Reload is what it seems they're doing. Talk a little bit about the SWAC tournament. Who are the teams to keep your eyes on, even though a lot of people may be focused on Jackson State?
Everybody's going to be focused on Jackson State. The team that possibly could give them the most problems. We know their only loss came to Prairie View early on in the season. And of course, you know, Sandy Pugh, she knows how to win. She's been around the SWAC for a long time, having been at Southern and then coming over to Prairie View. That's a team to watch out for. But I think the team that matches up size-wise, as you know, this Jackson State has 6 players that are over 6 feet tall. You know, so that's quite a lineup that they have there. Is Arkansas Pine Bluff probably matches up with Maori Davenport and those, you know, in terms of size. Now the other thing is you look at quickness. You look at teams that can give you some issues and give you some problems. And you look at that Southern University team. Watch out for Southern University. They're there. They're ranked number 4. And they've got to get by Prairie View, who's the 5th seed. Well, I didn't mean ranked. I meant seeded number 4. And they've got to get past the number 5 seeded Prairie View team. That would be, I think, that game they play on Thursday. But, you know, other than that, you just never know. Like you said, you have one of those great days. I mean, I remember years ago doing the MEAC tournament, Florida A&M men came into the tournament as low as you could get. You couldn't get any lower. If there was 100 seeds, they were 99. You know, and they won the whole tournament, NCAA tournament. So it's a one game elimination. All the team has to do is get hot for one game, hot for 2 games, and they're there. You know, and all you have to do is have a letdown. One of the things I think Coach Reed has done a very good job, Tamika Reed over at Jackson, is keeping those ladies' head focused in the right direction. Because when you're the champion, as you know, this is 3 years in a row this is the 4th year in a row that they won the regular season. The 3rd year, possibly, that they could win the SWAC championship. So when you're on top, what happens? Everybody's going to bring their A game. They're going to come after you with everything. So it's imperative that the coach make sure she instills that same message to them to let them know, you know, nothing is a give me. Don't go out there just think because we won 3 in a row or 4 in a row that, you know, we can just walk over people. It doesn't happen that way. And it showed early in the season when they lost to Prairie View, you know, because I had them the next game, they lost to Prairie View in Prairie View. And I had the next game with them when they played Texas Southern in Houston. And, you know, they were very, very upset because that snapped a 37-game winning streak. You know, they were fire. And so, again, like you said, It's anybody's tournament. Who's the number 8 seed going in? Grambling. Watch out. Grambling is not a bad team. Grambling is not a bad team at all.
And they scrappy, well coached.
Very scrappy, very well coached. And, of course, it's going to be tough for them to get by Jackson State, but they could. And if they do, watch out.
Yeah. I think to your point, Charlie, Coach Reed, she does a masterful job of keeping that Jackson State team sharp, but loose. There's a fine line in between, having that killer instinct and kind of keeping the team loosey-goosey. And she does a tremendous job with that. And that's one of the reasons I think they've been as successful as they have been over the past 3 years.
And they have some young ladies that work very well together. I mean, I don't know if you saw the game we did last week at Arkansas Pine Bluff. Like I said, they came out like they went quicksand, but they got it together. The little guard that they have there, Covington, she had a big game just the night before, or the game before that, where she scored a season high 25 points. And again, but she moved the pieces around. It was like a chess game. She knew who to put in at the certain times, and they responded. And the young lady who really has impressed me this year, the only thing she needs to work on more so than anything is her free throws. Daphne White, she is strong inside, and she was working against those 2 big girls from Arkansas Pine Bluff. They had her double team down low in the box, and she was still getting the ball and putting it in the basket. So I mean, that toughness that they have and played. She played at the university in Houston there for a moment before she transferred over to Jackson State. And she has really come on strong here lately. I think she has like 5 or 6 double-doubles so far this season.
Good stuff. Well, I told you we call it the legend for a reason. We'll be right back on the break. We'll come back and talk about the men side of the tournament. MEAC and SWAC. You're getting information that you can't get quite anywhere else unless often you go to HBCU. Go and check it out as he's doing the game. With that being said, stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Cavil's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeaversVoice.com. Cavil's Voice, Cavil's Voice, CavilsVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We have Charles Bishop joining us with Charlie Neal of HBCU Go, play-by-play, Hall of Famer, legend in so many different ways. With that being said, we're breaking down, just for you, we're looking at the MEAC SWAC tournaments that begin tomorrow. Top 8 teams are in it for that automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Put on your dancing shoes. It's that time. I think more so on the men's side with how some of these games was close this season than maybe what we saw on the women's side that we talked about in our last segment. You talked about a team getting hot. And it's not only the team getting hot, but the thing being that number 1 or that number 2 seed, being a one-bid league, as you get down to the stretch in those games and you're not having the lead or having the success, that weight really starts to feel like an elephant to me in a lot of ways. But let's look at the top 5. We'll get Charlie Neal's thoughts on that, and then we'll go back to Charles and Charlie in regards to what do they think about the MEAC and SWAC tournament. We'll start with the SWAC tournament, and then we'll get into the MEAC to close out this segment. In the top 5 this week, there were some teams that jumped around in the poll rankings, so we'll see what you think about that. Nobody dropped out this week. Receiving votes. This may surprise everybody. Just letting you know how tough it is to be in the top 5. Norfolk State Spartans are just on the outside. 68 points, 20-9. Great season. Faltered late, and they're at 9-4. Also behind them is Maryland Eastern Shore Eagles at 16-12, 8-5, 40 points. Southern Jaguars sit at 14-15. They really fell tough. They really owned the first part of the season in the SWAC, but have lost going down the stretch, including their last game where they faltered. Bringing us to the top 5. When you look at the top 5 this week, Tennessee State Tigers, 18-13, 10-8. They went on a run in the OVC. They had won 5 straight games, and they won like 7 of the last 8, but they lost the last 2. It seems after losing that last game on the regular season, Southern Illinois, if you would, over there in terms of the Indiana, I should say, in that matchup, and just could not get it going in the first round of the tournament. So they fall 2 spots from number 3 last week all the way down to number 5, 18-13, 10-8. And they're just holding on in the top 5. Remember, Norfolk State is outside of it. They had 68 points. So Tennessee State literally is just in there with 69 points. At number 4, North Carolina Central Eagles. You talked about Coach Mouton coming on to the season. We know what he does in the tournament. Well, he seems like he's turned the key in that Magic Nation over there in Raleigh. Had a big win over Norfolk State team, part of the 2-loss season that ended, where it really looked like Norfolk State had a chance to win the conference. But no, they had to play the Eagles and then Howard at home, and Howard really took it to them. A game called on HBCU I got to watch there in terms of that matchup. It was tough. But they sit at number 4, 17-11, 10-4, previous ranked 5, 71 points, so they move up a spot. Bringing us to number 3, Howard Bison, 19-12, 11-3, won first place vote, 80 points. Move up a spot from number 4. This team wins MEAC first time in 30-plus years. You've heard the stories. Kudos to the Bison. I'm not sure people thought they could get it done when they had their showdown against Norfolk. They were at home, and they had the bird buzzing that I hadn't quite heard in a long time. Credit to the Bison over there in the MEAC as they wear the crown. Number 2, Alcorn State Braves, 18-12, 15-3, first place vote, 93 points. They hold the number 2 spot. They win a share of the SWAC. They go into the tournament, though, as the number 1 seed, as they defeated the number 1 team early in the season. Remember, the week to week. Grambling State has been hot, 22-8, 15-3. Tremendous non-conference season. Hold on to the first place vote. 7 first place votes. Actually add 1 as a vote was missing from Tennessee State as they dropped 113 points, 22-8, as I said, 15-3, a share of the championship. They go in, though, the tournament as the number 2 seed. Top 5 programs, Tennessee State 5, North Carolina Central 4, Howard Bison 3, Alcorn State Braves 2, Grambling State Tigers 1. Grambling State Tigers close out the regular season number 1 ranking in week number 9. This is the poll ranking, and obviously this was before the news that came out today that dropped that their second leading scorer is in a bit of a trouble. So we'll see what that means for the tournament. A lot of things going on there. Charles, let me go to Charlie, I guess, first. What do you think, thoughts of the top 5 poll rankings in week number 9?
I like it. I like it because, I mean, you the way you broke it down,
Yes, you can't go. They can't say nothing to me, Charles. We can cut the show right here. Go ahead, Charles.
But yeah,
I'm sorry, I got a little excited.
I know. I was the only thing you could have flipped 1 and 2 between Alcorn and Grambling.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In that sense, I did not hear about whatever issues that Grambling is having player wise, but again, I've had a chance to see them a couple times this year, both on the men and women's side, and very impressed with the job that the both coaches have done with those teams at Grambling. Because if you go back years and you talk about the Fred Hobbies and you talk about the Pat Bibbs, you were used to Grambling being one of those dominant teams in the conference. Then there was a while, then it was Jackson State and Alcorn, with Dave Whitney and the coach down at Jackson State. Old Cub, Coach Cub. And then the women, same thing with Alcorn and Sadie McGee down at Jackson State, and then of course Shirley Walker at Alcorn. So the rivalries and the matchups are starting to raise their head, and you can see that as you go through the season. I mean, because Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and the Alabama States are fairly new when it comes to the SWAC and those type of rivalries, especially with basketball. But I like what I saw there with Grambling. I like Alcorn in there. Coach Bussey has done a fantastic job. Howard University is a team. I've seen them 3 times. I had a chance to do 3 of their games this year. Nice. And there Coach Blakeney has just done a fantastic job with the talent that he has with his guard. They have a young man, a freshman on that team named Shai Odom, who reminds me so much of who they had last year, who graduated, Randy Bruma, who left here. He's playing over in Europe, I believe, right now. But I like this kid, Shai Odom. He's freshman. Had a call with the conference office a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, and we were talking about who I like for different positions as rookie of the year and player of the year and this nature. And Shai Odom was my choice for freshman of the year, just like I pushed for Michael Gray to freshman of the year in the South Athletic Conference on the women's side. But the player of the year in the MEAC is going to be very interesting, because you have Bryant from Norfolk State, who was the defending player of the year from a year ago. But there's a kid up at Coppin State named Sam Sessoms. He's been doing it. I mean, he's been setting the conference on fire. And if you look at the statistical category for Sam Sessoms, he ranks just about somewhere in the top 10 in every statistical category, whether it's scoring, rebounding, block shots, you name it. Done a fantastic
stuff. Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good to Charles. What do you think about the top 5 in week number 9?
Top 5 week number 9. I like the top 5. I think one thing that jumps out with me with both the MEAC and the SWAC is the parity this year. It is really tough to call, especially going into tournament play. But what I really take a look at is the top 5 teams, top 5 teams in the MEAC. You can make a hard case for any one of them to make a run in this tournament. And I'm really curious, Charlie, teams such as Morgan State and Maryland Eastern Shore, Maryland Eastern Shore had a 7-game win streak at one point in time in the MEAC. In terms of looking at what they could do in this tournament, can you see some early upsets in the MEAC and in the SWAC?
I really do see upsets in the MEAC. You just mentioned Maryland Eastern Shore. Here's a team that's been dormant for a long, long time. And they had, like you said, they went on that 7-game winning streak. They played some tough games this year. They played Columbia. They beat them. They beat Temple on the road. So they didn't. There was no give-me's to them. And their coach has done a fantastic job of getting them ready for the tournament. I think that's a team that you can watch. Coach Waterman, Delaware State has really struggled this year, struggled early on, but they have won more games this year than they won in the last couple of years, the men and the women's side. So watch out for Delaware State. They're playing North Carolina Central number 2 against number 7. But don't put Delaware State down. That's one of those teams that, if you look by them or past them, they'll come around and they can beat you. Coppin State is another one. Juan Dixon has struggled with his team this year, but he's got that kid Sam Sessoms, and he's got Tark, who's on the team. His brother was playing here a couple of years ago. Now, you've got 2 real dominant players on that Coppin State team. They play Norfolk State, and they play them on Thursday, and the place will be packed down at the Scope because that's a Norfolk crowd down there. They'll be in there to watch Norfolk State and Coppin State. And that's a game, Coppin is number 6, but, that record is not indicative of the type of team that Juan Dixon has. So you watch out for them. Of course, Rob Jones, he's been there before. He's won a couple, tournaments for the MEAC. And so he's not a stranger to this type of competition, but we'll see what happens down the stretch. But that's one of the games I want to watch on. And like you said, talking about on the SWAC side, you got the Prairie View Southern game, Texas Southern. I mean, this is a team, again, I brought this out with the women. The same thing with the men. A number of the games that they lost this year were in single digits, and they played close. They played a very good game, close game against Prairie View this past Saturday down in Prairie View, Texas. And I like what Johnny Jones squad with Walker and all those kids there. But then Will Douglas, he had the game of his life on Saturday. So, it's one of those type things. And that's a heck of a rivalry between Texas Southern and Prairie View. But watch out. Prairie View could come out and knock off Southern University. You have Grambling and Jackson State going against each other. I'm sorry, it's not Grambling, Jackson. It's Grambling and Bethune-Cookman going against each other. So you never know what Bethune-Cookman's going to do. Reggie Theus does a very good job with his team. Like you said earlier, Charles, a lot of parity in the conference right now. And it's very easy to say, okay, this team is dominant, that team is dominant. Yeah, we know the Mississippi Valleys and some of those teams at the bottom have struggled a little bit this year. But the fact of the matter is these teams every single night are capable of beating another team. That's what you have to look at. And you don't sleep on anybody. I like Southern University. I like Grambling. I like Alcorn, but I'm not in their corner as much as some people think I should be. Like Cy Alexander, who's their assistant coach, there's a good friend of mine. In fact, we talk about once a week. And he called me yesterday. He said, because he wanted to do the games with me over the MEAC. He did them the last 10 years with me. I said, well, if you lose, you come on up, get a ticket.
That's how friends do you. You talk about some of those legends, like Cy, a legend for the MEAC. He even had a stint over at Tennessee State. He's now coaching all 3 of the Division I programs at some level, head coach and top assistant. It's great to see. You talked about some of those old school coaches in the SWAC on the men's side and women's side. Obviously, staying in Mississippi Valley, Coach Strib. Go over to Texas Southern that you talked about with Moreland. Boy, I tell you, it can get intriguing. And then the later years, obviously, you had Coach Pettaway over there at Alabama A&M as he transitioned that program into the league. Man, it's amazing to kind of think about what's going on. But you talk about some of those stats and how close they are. I dropped a nugget earlier, particularly the MAC in the SWAC, where you had 98 games played. 44 of those 98 games were decided by 6 points or less, 44.9%. I know you look at all your stats, so I had to bring something up to show you that I'm putting in my work in the lab on this side, as you say. Then 62, this was amazing to me. 9 possessions. In the game that's played now with the 3, that's only 3 shots. 62 a game, 63.3% with that close in terms of 3 possessions, to give you some indication when we say just how competitive the SWAC. And the MEAC on the men's side wasn't far behind that with 44% with a shorter number of teams or less number of teams. So that lets you know that this thing is wide open. So keep your eyes on these games. Get your entertainment in. We've gotten you ready for these matchups as they start tomorrow. Final thing, Charlie, anything else that you want to leave us with in regards to what's going on in some of these matchups?
Well, I think it's going to be a fantastic tournament, and not only the SWAC and the MEAC, but you have the SIC teams that are headed to their Division II playoffs. They
yes, sir.
Came out this past Sunday, a couple of days ago. So they are getting ready to go at it, and we want to keep an eye on them. Winston-Salem, Virginia Union, Tuskegee, all on the men's side, going out there to try to bring some recognition and some wins back to their schools and conferences. So I think that's very important to keep a watch on them.
No doubt, and keep an eye on Tougaloo and the NAIA.
Yes, right.
Yep, they won today to kind of start things off, as we talked about earlier. Great point. When you're talking about really the vast number of programs that are playing at this time of year when it really counts, meaning they're playing good basketball. Man, it's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be up that way for Wednesday and Thursday, so hopefully we can catch up. I can pull your brain a little bit. Maybe we can find time to get something to eat and take it down. I know we got a lot of basketball to catch this weekend as well.
Find time.
And it'll be on me.
All right. You'll have 2 meal tickets.
We'll stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. As we let Charlie go, we'll come back on the other side. Stick with us.
Thank you, guys.
I'm Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
T. Madden & Associates is a sophisticated and experienced law firm located in your neighborhood. We're turning injury to cash.
T. Madden and Associates obtained almost $2 million for my injury. They turned my injury to cash.
Now, we can't guarantee how much your injury is worth, but we've recovered millions for our clients.
Call T. Madden and Associates at 833-PAID-123. That's 833-PAID-123.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Hope you enjoyed our interview with the legend Charlie Neal as he broke down the MEAC SWAC and even gave us a little spotlight in terms of CIAA and SIC as they get ready for the tournament as well. Obviously, when we talk about this, Brian, that's Brian of AD Sports Wrap, gave another number. He said a storyline that he's picked out of the tournament on the men's side. Tournament is can Alcorn or Grambling, obviously regular season co-champs, 1 and 2 seeds respectively, overcome the eyes of Texas, as they say. Obviously, we live right here, so we've been able to live it and understand just how daunting it has been over the time. Not quite the same the last 2 seasons, at least in the regular season, but we'll see, does that mean the same thing for the tournament? Because check this out. A Texas school has won the SWAC tournament 5 consecutive years, played in 7 of the last 8. Yeah. Combined with that, a Texas school winning the regular season outright or co-champ 6 of those 8 years. Lets you know just how much of a tug the Texas schools have had on the SWAC tournament, basically, if you would, over this last decade when you think about a 10-year span. With that being said, Charles, what is on your mind to kind of close out things? Because it goes live tomorrow. All the talking can kind of stop, and we get us some games in. We'll get some finals, and we'll be able to report. And we'll talk about, obviously, the final days as we pretty much come on. We'll have most of the field set. We'll have maybe 2 games that need to be played in the SWAC, 2 games that need to be played in the MEAC in terms of those Thursday evening games to see who will join these other teams in the semifinals, setting things up for the finals on Saturday. What are your thoughts, man?
I'll start on the women's side. Let me start on the MEAC side first. And the storyline is who can knock off Norfolk State. When you take a look at, I think I asked Charlie about some of the players, and he mentioned players with North Carolina Central that can actually, a team can hop on their back, if you will, and kind of carry them going forward. So I take a look on the MEAC side of the ball in terms of what are those teams that can get hot and make this run in this tournament? I think when you take a look at it on the MEAC side of the ball and women, there's a player in particular that I'm taking a look at with Norfolk State, Camille Downs. She is a tremendous basketball player. Watched her, had an opportunity to watch her on a couple of occasions this season, and I really am looking forward to what she can do in this tournament. On the SWAC side of the ball, the question becomes, and I think Charlie masterfully touched on it, who is a team that can catch Jackson State on the right day? Jackson State undoubtedly is the hottest team in this tournament. They've won 14 in a row. They are a very dominant team. But Charlie mentioned it. UAPB, interestingly enough, they really kind of match up with Jackson State. They have two bigs down low that really have given Jackson State fits at times. So, but I give Jackson State this credit with regards to what I call their ability to break teams' momentum and their little 5-7-0 spurts. Over 3 years, I've watched them do this, where they get a defensive stop, they get a bucket, they get another defensive stop, they miss a shot, get a rebound, get fouled. All of a sudden, it's a 5-0 run. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched them do this, where they've been in quicksand, like Charlie mentioned, and somehow dig themselves out of quicksand by just playing great defense. So those are the things that I kind of watch with Jackson State. But we've seen it. You and I have seen it, Dr. Bill. Prairie got hot, and they were able to ride that momentum. So who is a team that can get hot and ride momentum? Is it UAPB? Is it Alabama State with two all-SWAC first teamers? Or is it a team like Southern? He mentioned their quickness. They don't have a player on the first or second team, but they play very well together. They play good team basketball. And all these teams, they can get some momentum and challenge you down the stretch. So it'll be interesting. On the men's side of the ball, I mentioned it earlier.
I would throw in Alabama A&M also on the women's side. Great.
Alabama A&M.
And as you say that, before you get into men, just to break it up a little bit, I like what you talked about in terms of the momentum, as Charlie said, because you think about for the last 5 some matchups with Arkansas Pine Bluff, they've been able to play with Jackson State for like 3 quarters, certainly 2.5. But it's something about being able to close out. And with the Prairie game that they were able to win this year, Jackson State made that run that you talked about. But Prairie View was able to do just enough to answer that run and go down to close it. The other thing is the turnovers. Jackson State at times will let you play with them a little bit if they turn the ball over. Can you make them pay when they turn you over? Sometimes when they turn the ball over, teams don't necessarily make them pay. So if there is any stretch of inclination, as you said, those are the things. Pine Bluff with the height, Southern with the quickness, Alabama A&M with the team ball, mixing it with the cutters, Prairie View being able to get those cutters, having a couple of players really go off, shooting well from the 3, and
that's
taking
the big
advantage
thing
of the turnover. Those are the things that you got to kind of see, the magic potion that'll make it close. I don't see it, but you're right. We're talking about what are the things that will allow it to happen if it happens. Yeah. Go ahead and turn us to the men's side. SWAC, MEAC, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and real quick with the women's, that's the analytic that I'm really looking at this weekend. Who shoots the 3 ball? In terms of can you, like you mentioned it, can you answer that 5-7-0 run that inevitably Jackson State is going to go on? Turn attention to the men's side of the ball. And again, it's parity that makes it so difficult to really kind of predict what's going to happen in the MEAC or the SWAC tournament, because I literally take a look at Howard Central, Norfolk State, Maryland Eastern Shore, and Morgan State. Those top 5 teams all have an opportunity to make a run, especially when you take a look at Maryland Eastern Shore and Morgan State. At various points this season, they have been on top in the MEAC. So can they take that one player and get on their shoulders and ride that momentum to knock off a team like Howard? On the SWAC, that 1 versus 8 matchup scares me with Grambling and Texas Southern. Texas Southern, I think, still a down season.
Well, one person. 8 is actually
Alcorn in
Texas
Texas Southern. I'm sorry, Alcorn in Texas Southern. Texas Southern actually has the pieces that can make a run in this tournament. Down season, but we've seen at times they play Texas Southern basketball. They haven't been able to put it together all season. Can they put it together here in this tournament? Another team, keep an eye out for. Jackson State has gotten hot down the stretch. They've won 4 in a row. They have great guard play, and they have some bigs that have been playing really well down the stretch, and they rebound the ball a little bit. What bothers me a little bit about Jackson State, defensively, they're in the bottom half of the league, but they've been playing good ball down the stretch. So those are a couple of teams keep an eye out on, and undoubtedly, when you have championship pedigree, you can make a run in the tournament. Prairie View has championship pedigree. I do not count out the Prairie View A&M Panthers. I think they can make a run in this tournament as well.
Yeah, if anything, you kind of like that 3-6 matchup. They both played close. They split, but those games both gone to the wire, just letting you know how close those teams are. One thing that I've liked what Jackson State has been able to do late, they've been able to close some games.
They've been able to close.
Just those numbers I gave you with games being close. You need some folks that are comfortable out closing out games. Prairie View lost a lot of close games early in the season, but second half, they've been able to close games. So you're right. Those are the same things that I'm looking for. The pedigree of Texas Southern, the way they built. Grambling obviously can play so many different styles.
Yeah.
Will that hurt them in the tournament when you see that? And then obviously with the thing that came out of the news, tough to hear that a young man has did that to somebody and they have to go through it. But what does that do with the rest of the team? Obviously, he didn't play in the last matchup. Knew it was coming. Maybe they can galvanize and play for each other. We'll see what that looks like. But now you got Bethune-Cookman. Old Coach Diaz, he's been in that tournament match, so he knows kind of pull those buttons. They have guard play over there, Bethune-Cookman.
They have guard play.
Fits.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting to see what they can do going to the tournament. That 2-7 matchup is fascinating for me in regards to what you look at. And then you talk about the MEAC. Oh, man, some of those matchups are just wild. Howard, South Carolina State, don't see much there. But then, obviously, North Carolina Central and Delaware State. You get in that Norfolk State, Coppin State, interesting with session. It's just in some people's minds, the play of the conference plays so many ways. Norfolk State struggling down the stretch. Can they get it going? Obviously, they're going to have the home crowd. They're going to be lathered up, and they want to make a statement and make amends to probably what they think about it, letting go of a regular season championship in terms of pedigree. And then you had that Maryland matchup with Maryland Eastern Shore and Morgan State Bears. It started off the season so hot. Can they get some of that back? Obviously, injuries. But it's going to be fascinating when you talk tournaments, men's and women. I'm fascinated to see that.
Let me throw out a couple of names.
Go ahead.
Throw out a couple of names to keep an eye for in the SWAC tournament. P.J. Henry. We saw him with a 40-point game against Alcorn. Dominic Bruton at Alcorn, another scorer. John Walker III. He is a matchup issue for teams because of his length. 6'9", he can put it on the floor. He can shoot the three, or he can go down on the block. So there are some players to keep an eye out for in this SWAC tournament. I'm really looking forward to.
I like that. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As we come to a close, make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Obviously, I hope you enjoyed our guest, Charlie Neal, HBCU Gold, the legend that has called so many HBCU sports games, both football and basketball, and many games when you really break down his legendary play-by-play calling. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday. I'll be back on Thursday. I'll be on the road. I'll give you your updates from Norfolk. I'll start there for 2 days, fly back into Birmingham for the SWAC tournament. So I'll be able to give you some insight of being on the ground. So we look forward to going on the road and giving you a show as we do. With that being said, we look forward to Thursday to give you the latest news. We'll give you some updates on the NIA tournament. We told you about Tougaloo getting that big win. The Bulldogs there as they open the tournament. We'll give you some updates in terms of what that looks like for the Division II programs as they continue to get ready, particularly for the NA. Follow me, Dr. Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Horse.
Roy.
Lecture.
Dismiss.